Hello everybody, my name's Joe Quick and this is Joe's Quick Review. This week we're reviewing Above Snakes by Glade Games, currently available on Steam but expected to port to consoles in the near future. I really like this game, but it really annoys me that I like this game and I'll explain why in a minute. But first I want to do a quick shout out for Foretold, currently running its campaign on Kickstarter. It looks like it has some similar elements to Above Snakes, so if you like one you might like the other. But the thing that caught my attention was the parkour element, sliding under and over tables to avoid your enemies in combat. I've backed this already, but it's got a long way to go to reach its funding goal, so consider supporting it if you're interested. Speaking of projects I've backed, next week I'll be reviewing Lucid Dreaming, a point-and-click comedy adventure where we enter a young girl's dreams to rid her of her nightmares and discover a dark family secret. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it. So, back to Above Snakes. If you're intending to play this game, and I would recommend it, then just be prepared for the grind. Not the cool kind of grind that pro skaters do, or the kind you hope might happen at the local discotheque, but the kind of grind where you collect 100 berries, 50 rocks, 92 lemons, and an egg from the top of that cliff. I know that a lot of people are into the Stardew Valley farming kind of vibe, but with possessed villagers lurking in the forest and the calendar days seemingly vanishing into thin air, you can't help but feel you should be working harder to progress in the game. However, by the time you've finished watering your imaginary garden, it's already nightfall again. So why do I keep coming back and playing it? Normally I aim for an hour's gameplay before doing a review, but with Above Snakes I felt like I hadn't covered enough content to give it a justified opinion. So I played it for another hour. Then I came back later in the day and played it for another 2 hours. Then I came back the following day and played it for another 2 hours. Then before I knew it, it was Friday, I looked at my phone, my boss had been calling me, I'd lost my job because I'd been missing for a month. These games give you just enough to motivate you to keep playing. Just as you're losing your mind chopping down the billionth tree of the day, you reach a goal, a little tidbit of a story that gives you a sense of progression. This false achievement pushes you forward. Oh, that was cool. A wolf attacked me and I fell into a cave. And now I can collect blue rocks and these glow-in-the-dark mushrooms. You're drawn in by the world they've created. You want to know what else there is to do, to see, to explore. And before you know it, you've been given another shopping list of random tasks and items to complete. And you do it. You do it because what? What's at the end of the cave? I got used to calling these guys zombies. And the next thing I know, I'm being chased by skeletons with guns.
Woohoo! Oh.
That's exciting. They're not zombies. What are they? What has wrought this strange curse over the world of Above Snakes? I need to know. And 10 fish, 40 bits of string, the fang of a rare two-headed snake that only appears once a month. These grinding games are an escape, a near-perfected form of procrastination. I could be doing the same things in the real world. Take out the bin bags, cook dinner, take the dog for a walk. Equally rewarding when I think about it. But nobody's going to ring my doorbell and congratulate me at the end of the day. On the other hand, if I can just get one more nail and a plank of wood, then I can build this farmer a fence, and he will be so over the moon he might just give me a tomato that I can plant in my imaginary garden, which will take 3 days to grow and produce a total of 2 tomatoes. Anyway, rant over, maybe. I had a very different opinion of this game in the first hour, so let's take a look.
The conflict between the settlers and the first people was at its peak. The drums of war echoed across the land like a never-ending thunder. While war raged on, a love blossomed from the fields of hate. And from that love, a child was born. Ayana, who had eventually grown into her own, chose to travel the lands and learn for herself the histories of her lineage. With a heavy heart, her mother stayed behind in a town called Corpse Creek. On one fateful evening in Corpse Creek, the midnight skies were interrupted by a light of brilliant green. The awe of such an event quickly dissolved into horror as a flurry of stones of flame descended upon the town. Most folks fell victim to the debris and smoke that consumed the land, though the survivors quickly discovered that the bodies did not remain still for long. That night, Ayana had stayed in a lumberjack settlement far away from her beloved mother.
So there's a nice little introduction to the story. This green asteroid type thing has hit the aptly named Corpse Creek, whilst our protagonist Ayana was off travelling the world. So the following morning we wake up in this cabin, and someone's shouting at us from outside. There's no voice acting throughout the game, so the characters communicate with grunts, but thankfully not continuous repetitive chipmunk sounds. Instead, all of the dialogue is presented to you in these one-to-one conversational bite-sized text boxes, with the occasional multiple choice question so you don't get too bored of reading, and it also shifts the dialogue in one direction or another, but as far as I can tell it doesn't make any changes to the gameplay. In addition to the grunting, weeping, clearing of the throat sound effects, you'll also hear the pages turning and the scribbling of pen on paper, which gives you a nice impression that you're writing your own story as the pages unfold. Overall, the game does a really good job of introducing you to the story and the mechanics in the first 15 to 20 minutes of the game. And if you're into game development yourself, I would definitely mark this down as one to watch in terms of creating a good tutorial. All of your objectives pop up in a simple display box, with some added context to the story or the task at hand, and a clearly defined list of activities to complete. You can also open your backpack and refer to your current list of quests if you get lost along the way. All of the interactable objects get this icon appear as you approach them, which makes them easy to identify. However, some of them have actions against them, like searching the pine tree, whereas others don't and are purely there to be chopped up or broken down, and that's a little bit misleading at the start. The backpack and crafting menus are simple and easy to navigate, although the item description can often get in the way and block your view of the rest of your inventory. When I first started playing this, I thought, how is my axe getting stronger? If anything, I was expecting it to fall apart. But that is, of course, our own skill level with the axe. You'll see in the top right of the screen that you're doing a wonderful job of collecting things, and it notifies you when there's something new that you could craft. Fast forward a little bit, and our screaming lady Joanne tells us that we need to craft a hammer so that we can start construction. Once you've crafted your hammer, you can destroy this building and start building your own. You just need to craft a workbench, chop some trees, collect some wood, gather some fibres, and then you can start building your own house. Now your house or shelter does give you some perks, such as an increase in health or improved fatigue, and these perks increase the better your shelter is. At least that's what the instruction leads you to believe. I found it was actually more dependent on the level of your workbench. So you can't build a really awesome shelter at the start of the game and benefit from a load of perks, because you still need to reach certain targets to level up your workbench to improve your shelter. The construction system, however, is really nice. Once you've placed one piece down, the elements simply click into place in a grid-like fashion. So it's really easy to build a nice little shelter, providing you've got enough materials. Joanne then tells us that while she's been watching us chop down trees and build her a shelter, that she's noticed that the man on the floor is still breathing, and maybe we should help him out. Once adequately bandaged, the injured man realises that he is in fact a zombie, and starts to attack you. Now you can perform dodge rolls, but I found after chopping down all the trees, I had a pretty good arm with the axe, and this worked just as well, if not better, in defeating the zombies. Here's some good advice: don't starve. And it leads to one of this game's more unique features: world building. After you've done a certain amount of gathering, you earn the right to lay another world piece, and this simply connects to any part of your existing map, providing it's the same biome or climate. You can then proceed to start gathering huckleberries, a vital resource for food, water, and creating ink so that you can edit a world map. Joanne leaves us a letter to let us know that she's leaving, and we're left to fend for ourselves. As the main tutorial comes to a close, we're provided with the cartography table, which, with the right resources, allow you to research new pieces of the world map. And so the game continues in this fashion. We gather resources, expand the world, run errands for people, and the story progresses. I was quite surprised by the first hour of gameplay. Everything moved forward at a nice pace, and you were constantly introduced into new elements of the game. But the bigger the world got, the slower everything else seemed to be, the one exception being the length of the day. And achieving anything seemed much more like a chore than an enjoyable gaming experience. Lucky for Ayana, she doesn't seem to age, and the food doesn't have an expiry date. So if you do enjoy casually chopping down trees and collecting berries, then you'll probably enjoy this game. There are a variety of biomes to discover, people to meet, and some nice surprises and features later in the game which keep it interesting enough to keep playing. And if you are interested, you can even play the prologue for free now on Steam. This lets you play through an hour or so of the story mode, so let me know your thoughts on the game. Now let's rate Above Snakes. The art style and graphics might look familiar to some of you, especially if you are into game development. Whilst they have made some assets of their own, I believe the game uses the models available from Synty Studios. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But Synty creates some nice low poly assets, great for building a game quickly and not heavily impacting the performance. Unfortunately, because it is quite popular, these assets are becoming quite common in recent games. But you can also adjust for this with filters, shaders, and of course, camera angles. Regardless, it looks great and creates an immersive world, providing you don't fall down the cracks in between tiles. I'll give the graphics 4 stars. The animation also feels fairly generic, but it's clear what the characters are doing. It could be improved, for instance your tools just appear and vanish from your hands, so unless Ayana has some future technology we're not aware of, elements like that could be polished. Although you do need to balance the animation with the gameplay. Later in the game you need to switch between warm and cold clothing, and if that was animated, not only would it be a little bit perverse, but you would also die in the cold before you get your coat on. Animation gets 3 stars. There isn't much to comment on in regards to cutscenes. Obviously we have the opening video introducing us to the world and story, which is nice. But apart from that, the game is made up of dialogue between characters. The conversations don't require any animation and fit in nicely with the gameplay, so I'll give cutscenes 3 stars. The story is quite simplistic, but actually quite enjoyable. Yes, it's another zombie-esque game, but maybe there's something more to it. Can they be cured? We're yet to find out. Probably not all the ones I've axed to death and the skeletons in the desert, but there's still hope for the lone wanderers. My only bugbear is that there is so much grinding between the story's progression. I have seen some comments suggesting that there is around 20 hours of gameplay, but I've been playing for 6 hours already, and according to the game stats, at 80% completion. You could easily throw another 15 hours into building your dream shelter in the woods and tending to your garden. Based on what I know so far, I'll give the story 3 stars. The user interface is good, the menus are easy to navigate and it's clear what you can interact with. A few negative points that I mentioned earlier in the video, with the backpack item description covering the backpack contents, and some confusion as to what you can investigate versus what you can just destroy. I'll give the UI 3 stars. The controls are fairly easy to use and displayed on the screen at all times. However, each time I thought I had mastered it, my fingers got in a muddle and I had to check which button to push again. There is some differentiation between the gameplay and the menu screens, which didn't agree with the left side of my brain. You had to use the trigger buttons, the D-pad and the analog stick to fully navigate the screen. Sometimes it was the first trigger button to switch to the right, sometimes it was the second, depending on whether you were looking at your backpack or the cooking menu. So I feel like it could have had some polish there. You can use console controls or the keyboard and mouse to play the game, both offering a slightly different experience. The buttons are also fully configurable to your playing preference. In terms of navigating the world, I preferred using the console controller, but the mouse was better to navigate the menus. The mouse also highlighted additional instructions that you wouldn't have been able to access with a console control. That's not uncommon for PC to console ports. Finally, aiming a long-range weapon, the gun or the bow, with any accuracy was impossible with the console controller, but did work quite nicely with the mouse as you simply shot in the direction of your pointer. Controls get 3 stars. There aren't any online or multiplayer features, so no social aspect of the game. For replayability, if you felt inclined, you could revisit the story mode, but I certainly have had my fill of shopping lists and errands. There is also a sandbox option which gives you access to all the biomes and lets you play at your leisure, so you can build the world you want and casually gather berries along the way, which would be a preferred option if I was going to come back and replay it. But apart from that, there is not much reason to return to this game. 3 stars for replayability. The soundtrack is nice, setting the scene for our western atmosphere. The sound effects of chopping wood and rock mining doesn't require much creativity. I'm glad there aren't any voiceovers because with the amount of dialogue it would probably be too heavy, plus it allows you to skip through the dialogue at your own pace without any restrictions or stuttering. The soundtrack gets 4 stars. I don't feel that this game is particularly accessible. There are no additional features or functionality to assist with disabilities, with the exception of switching off lightning flashes and some general control configuration. There are no difficulty settings and the game runs at a relatively fast pace, so I'll give accessibility 1 star. That's a total of 26 stars for Above Snakes. Of course, if you have a different opinion of the game, please let me know in the comments. Now I'm keen to take a look at their Kickstarter campaign, as they more than doubled their target in funding, and based on the campaign, there should be more in-game content to come. The project launched on January 20th, 2022, with a target of around €25,000, and it was funded by the 29th of January, just 1 week. So why was it so successful? Tobias Schnackenberg, the founder of Square Glade Games, started this project on their own, and they have built up quite a following on social media. They also used a publisher to help in advertising the game and the campaign, Critivo, who have helped bring a lot of other indie games to life, such as another one I've backed, Rattenreich. Keep your eyes open for the review on that game when it releases. They also used social media challenges, such as sharing the trailer, retweets and Discord members, to help spread the word. If the goal was reached, some new feature or functionality would be added to the game. They did accomplish 300 retweets, which unlocked the lightning bow, but this is yet to be seen in the game, if it is even in the game. Then you have stretch goals, where if they surpass their target by 10%, 20% and so on, new features would be added. So if they hit 30,000 in funding, they would introduce spirit shrines into the game, which would give your character perks whilst running around the world, also yet to be seen in the game. At 35,000 they would include mini-games such as poker, blackjack and fishing. While I would hardly call this fishing a mini-game as opposed to another opportunity to spend 20 minutes holding the same button. And again, the other items I mentioned are yet to make an appearance. An animal companion at 45,000. We did see this one. About a third of the way into the game you befriend a wolf, and it will assist you in collecting items and finding some pretty random bits buried in the ground. The final stretch goal they reached was the console ports. So maybe, just maybe, you'll one day see Above Snakes on Xbox, Switch or PlayStation. One fun fact from behind the scenes was that they actually named their company based on one of the tiles in this game, the Hunter's Hut tile, which features early on in the game and also I believe in the opening screen. Speaking of hunters, that reminds me, if you have a soft spot for animals you might want to think twice about playing this game. Throughout the gameplay I've killed Bambi and all her friends, even the penguins that didn't make it into the final cut of the film. They do make a point of stating that the game is a work of fiction however, so no animals harmed. And also highlighted the fact that whilst it is a western, all characters are fictional and not to be misinterpreted for a specific culture, geography or time period, in case the green asteroid didn't give it away. They even worked with a community of Native Americans to improve Ayana's design and better portray her character. Whilst the original artwork looks awesome, giving you this ready for adventure Tomb Raider kind of vibe, they changed their cover art to reflect her mixed heritage and also represent the world that you're about to explore. Doesn't she look calm and relaxed? Nobody's told her how many trees she's going to have to chop down. Either way, that's it for me and Above Snakes. Hopefully I've given you plenty to think about if this is a game for you or not. Personally, I will be going back to finish off the story, and then I think my computer will get the axe. Have a wonderful week, and join me again for my review of Lucid Dreaming.
Well, that's just doubled my workload.
I think I'd better start running. You mean like a bear?
Don't bring me into this.